Ms. Yocum, has Ms. Porteous arrived?
Indeed, she has.
Thank you. So I guess if one of us can have their sound bar on,
Yep.
that way I can hear, because my headphones aren't working for whatever reason. Oh, is it going to be up there? Okay, then, okay, we're good then. Perfect. All right, so we can go ahead and get started then. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. It's 4:34 on September 23rd, 2020. So I believe this is number 8, negotiations number 8. And so we received the district salary counters last week on the 16th, and PEA submitted our counter electronically last night. And so we are here to start discussions. So do you want me to kind of go through, just summarize what we sent over?
Sure.
Okay.
I assume it's, you got some different or new and updated numbers and dollars and just plug them in.
Yeah, so I used, yeah, so it's the same method, but we used what the district did to cost out. And so we just made sure we were talking about the same number of people and the same number of levels. And we also saw that, I guess because charter FTE is down, we have a slightly bigger set lump of money. We were working off 14.7, and I saw in your pivot table, you were working off 15.2 million. So I had adjusted it to reflect the 15.2 that was reported in the district's pivot table. So what that did on the teacher salary allocation side was, based on our banding method, we were able to get the base salary up almost $200 more from our initial proposal to 43.9. Instead, we were at 43.7 before. And so, and then each level after that, after the first initial banding of in those levels getting 2,950, the next group of levels would be receiving 2,360. The third group of levels would be receiving 1,770. And then the last group of levels under our counter would be receiving 1,180, whereas before we were at 1,125 due to the updated numbers and the slightly bigger allocation than what we had originally thought. Go ahead, Mike.
How's that? So I just want to make sure that my staff got that
I did
Because,
reply all on what Laura had sent out, so I didn't check
So,
to see if Jamie
Heather's
had
usually-
that.
okay, good.
Yeah, we can send
All right,
it.
just so that they verify that we're all good. I just want to make sure.
I wasn't sure if they were on there.
Should probably unmute too. And so really our method hasn't changed with the salary allocation. We just updated it so that we were both talking about the same number of people, which we were pretty close from the July numbers that Heather had sent us. But we updated them. And so with the para and the ESP contracts, what you have as a counter, it still adheres to our core values going into this negotiation of we need to have a plan to get to $15 an hour within the next few years. And phase one of that being to try to get to 10 this year for our folks that are under 10 while still giving everybody a raise. And so we went back and reworked our para and ESP cost out numbers. So what we ended up doing was the original proposal had shortened some of the salary schedules on the support staff to try to get them to the top faster. But in light of trying to trim it up a little bit, we preserved the current years that they have right now in levels. So if they were at 27 levels now, they're still at 27 levels, and we stretched that out. But that's still under our counter, it still gets everybody a raise. But what it does to the total bottom line from general and non-general fund positions, it takes it down from where we were at 6 million total with general fund and non-general fund to 3.9 million, which is a savings of about $2 million. In the general fund, our original proposal had the general fund at 4.36, and that's with benefits too. So that's with the FRS increase, that's with FICA that goes up. And so we got that down with our current proposal that was handed to you last night at 2.16, which is a savings of almost $2.2 million. And so that's where we're at with the para and secretary counters from our end. And so do you guys have any questions about our counters?
Yeah, can you repeat again? There was this, from your original, this is, the new one is less than the,
And so we were still able to maintain our core values going into this negotiations from our side, was that we wanted to get everybody to $10 an hour that wasn't at 10, but also giving everybody, regardless of years of experience, they're seeing a raise. And so what we did was, instead of collapsing some schedules, we kept it to where if they're still on the 0 to 27 now, they're on a 0 to 27 year in the current proposal that was sent to you last night, and that helped with cost. And what we also did in the front end, let me get the para one just as an example. So like what we did in the front end is, like for PA1, just for example, on the current schedule, it would be $14,332 based on their number of hours they work to get to at least 10. And so what we did was for those years of experience that were under 10, so that would be years 0, 1, 2, 3, and zeros 1, 2, and 3 are right now currently below $10 an hour. We made 0, 1, 2, and 3 the same money amount. So they're all 0, 1, 2, and 3 at $14,332, which also helped cut our costs a little bit on that. And again, the idea here is that those people wouldn't be stationary at 10, because if the ballot initiative passes in November, ballot initiative amendment 2, we would be obligated at that point to bring everybody up to 10 anyway, and then they would be increasing $1 per hour until we're at 15. And so really anybody below 15, if this ballot initiative passes, we would having to be reworking this every year anyway. And so, but that helped us save in the short term. And In the general fund, it cut our proposal in half of what we had originally proposed, just by lengthening back out the salary schedule and keeping those beginning ones at the same level if they were already below 10. And the same went true for ESP. We did the same strategy for the ESP side. Did you guys have any questions with the pair ESP? Okay. All right, so that's on the table. So I figured, I mean, the pair and ESP ones are pretty straightforward. And really our teacher salary allocation one hasn't changed either, except for we've adjusted for the updated numbers and the levels, and with a little bit extra money than we had originally anticipated having. And so are you coming with a different approach than what you gave us last week with this, or are we still on the teacher salary allocation?
Yeah, we're still the same. We believe it was Lake County just came to a recent agreement based on our proposal.
Can't hear.
I'll have to ask Stuart. I didn't think Lake had come to an agreement yet as of last night. So I know DeSoto did last night, but they had done it based off of a banding method. So I'll have to check with Lake. But DeSoto did a banding.
Can Mike turn on his mic?
Swanee did a banding. There's not too many people that have agreements yet. There's, I think, 6 or 7. And some of them are South Florida, like Collier has settled, but I think we can't even compare to South Florida because Collier, Palm Beach, Broward, Miami-Dade had a close starting salary already close to $47,500. And so they're able to use 80% to just get the few step levels that they had to $47,500, and then that frees up the money. Correct. And so we're really looking at comparables, I think, in Central Florida, and really North Central Florida is in a different situation too, because they're so far below 47.5 that they have nobody's getting to 47.5 unless you're maybe at the very top of the scale. So we've been looking at Central Florida districts as comparables because it seems like the Central Florida chunk, probably up through Alachua County, it's really in our same position, and not too many of those districts have settled yet.
Yeah, I agree. We should be just looking at the ones that can't make the 47.5 because that's where the issues are. Everybody else shouldn't, except maybe Palm Beach got there and they're still struggling. So
yeah, Palm Beach I don't think has officially started yet. So I guess just a few things with the teacher salary allocation after looking at your numbers on there. And when I say numbers, looking at the percent raises down your schedules. So looking at the law, and really when I say law, looking at both laws in its entirety, House Bill 641 and House Bill 5001. And actually looking and reading through the guidance that Laura had sent over yesterday, I really think that based on these laws, and I've read them, I feel like 1 million times at this point, and even what I found probably the most interesting from was the House of Representatives staff final bill analysis. And so on page 4 of that staff bill analysis, I think we really find the intent of the law here. And when it starts talking about the effects of the law. And so the effects of the law of this teacher salary allocation law from House Bill 641 And this is from the House of Representatives staff analysis. So this isn't anything that DOE has put out, anything the FEA has put out, or any of our other prospective associations. It says the bill establishes the teacher salary increase allocation in the Florida Education Finance Program to assist school districts in their recruitment and retention of classroom teachers and other instructional personnel. And so I think right there tells us what the intent of the law was. It was to give equitable raises to not just classroom teachers, but to other instructional staff. And so looking at your proposal and our proposals side by side, and again, keeping in mind that House Bill 641 has two parts to this salary allocation, and that you can't in silo look at one part without looking at the other. They're in conjunction together because House Bill 5001 states that 80% is to 18 Section 1 and the 20% allocation is to 18 Section 2. And so you can't look at them in silos, which I think your proposal is doing, is it's siloing them. And so with the intent, from what I just read from the staff analysis, I really think that it's not just about the base salary allocation here. It's about the 2% raise for other classroom teachers, and it's recruiting and retaining quality other non-classroom instructional staff. And your salary proposal just doesn't do that. What it does is it creates dissension amongst our instructional units. It would potentially move performance-based non-classroom teachers to a lower salary schedule, therefore getting a pay cut and moving into what was considered under our contract a promoted position. And so looking at the numbers here, Mike, when I was comparing our new counter to your counter, do you know the percent of people, well, let's just talk about classroom teachers. The percent of classroom teachers that would be making less than a 2% raise on your proposal.
Hold on, before he answers that, can I just ask Laura to show this part of the same staff analysis? So you just read the first sentence, which is true. I don't know that it speaks about equity, but I hear you. Let me say that. So if Laura moves it down, it says it further says each school district and charter school is required to use the portion of the allocation as specified in GAA to increase the minimum base salary for full-time classroom teacher as defined in 101201 subpart 2A Florida statutes to include pre-K teachers funded in the FEFP to at least 47.5 or to the maximum amount achievable based on the school district's portion of the allocation. So it goes on to define minimum base salary. It further states, and we didn't add these highlights, but it further states no full-time classroom teacher will receive a salary less than the minimum base salary as adjusted by this portion of the allocation. Further, it says, additionally, each school district is required to use a portion of the allocation as specified in the GAA to provide salary increases to the following as determined by the school district. Full-time classroom teachers are defined in 101201 2A to include certified pre-K teachers in the FEFP, but not include sub-teachers who did not receive or received an increase of less than 2% from the minimum base salary portion. And then it specifies other full-time instructional personnel. And so I think we're not arguing about the lack of equity in the law itself, right? And I think your argument has been you are not being equitable. And I don't know that that is a true statement. I would say that just based on this, you can clearly see the delineation between full-time classroom teachers as specified in 101201-2A and those that are in 101201-2B through D. Those are two separate parts. We didn't write the law.
But does it say anything?
Hold on. We didn't write the law. We just didn't. So full-time classroom teachers as defined as 1012-012A are separate from the others that are listed.
But it doesn't say anywhere that you have to create separate salary schedules. And it just says in the highlighted part, no full-time classroom teacher will receive a salary less than the minimum base salary. In our proposal, and really in your proposal either, the classroom teacher, no classroom teacher receives a higher base salary than somebody that's already currently here.
Scroll
I
up.
think the difference here is because it doesn't say you have to split salary schedules.
It doesn't. It does not say that. However, it does say that the full-time classroom teacher as defined in 1012.012A, the 2A teacher, I'm going to say 2A and then 2B through D teachers, right? Because we know what we're talking about 1012.01. But the 2A teacher is specifically identified as those that are supposed to receive the 47.5 or as close to it as possible.
But it doesn't
And
say
so-
we can't do that for our non-classroom teachers.
It does not. However, we can't because of the 20%. And I think that's where the missing piece is. We're taking the 80% and trying to give the classroom teachers as close to 47.5 as possible.
But really,
With
you're
the
just
other
doing it.
20%, then we're addressing the B through D teachers. We don't have enough to get the B through D teachers on the same salary schedule.
Yeah,
If we
do.
did, that would be okay. We don't have enough. And so I think that's where the disconnect is. I think that you are saying, and I won't say you, I think overall PEA is saying the district is the district. And that's just simply untrue. You and I and Mike have all said, hey, this law is meant, in my view rather, to create a division. It's not not necessarily something that we like. Obviously, if we had money, previously we were bargaining with Mary Ann, when we had the money to pay everybody, the coaches, the deans, etc., we paid everybody the same amount. They were all teachers in our eyes. And so I think to say that the district is making this delineation is not necessarily accurate. And so I would just be mindful about that.
So I will say though,
That's it.
because
All I got.
you brought something up in the reading of the staff analysis, and really that's just taken from the law too. I mean, a lot of this is copy and pasted straight from the law. And so you talked about additionally, each school district is required to use a portion of the allocation as specified. That's the 20%. And so full-time classroom teachers that did not receive at least a 2% raise. And then it talks about our other non-classroom folks. And so on your proposal, and I guess that takes me to a perfect segue here. On your proposal, how many classroom teachers, and I'm not even talking about non-classroom teachers right now, how many classroom teachers get at least a 2% raise on your proposal?
I don't have that information.
So according to what numbers I crunched from your pivot table, and I'm just talking classroom teachers right now, I'm not even talking non-classroom teachers. On your proposal, only 51% of our classroom teachers receive at least a 2% raise. Whereas on our proposal, 95% of our classroom teachers receive at least a 2% raise.
I guess that's where the disconnect is. We're not arguing equity. It's not an equitable issue.
I'm
We're
just
not
trying to
arguing equity. It's not. We
Right.
agree that there is a lack of equity. I don't know what else.
So there's nothing in this law that says, it doesn't say how to do this. That's bargainable. And so we're at the table. Us, you guys, we're at the table together. We get to decide what maximum amount achievable looks like, so that we don't forget about whole thousands of employees. We get to decide that. The DOE is not a bargaining agent here. FEA is not a bargaining agent. Okay, FIN, SPADS, they're not bargaining agents at this table. PEA is, and you guys are. We get to decide what maximum amount achievable looks like. We get to decide whether we want to have equity in our district among our instructional staff or we don't. Because there are districts that are doing it this way that have ratified agreements. And there are some districts that are doing it your way. And so at the end of the day, that's our decision. And so I guess I'm having, and I think our team is having trouble just looking at the comparisons here. I mean, even on your proposal, only 48 grandfathered classroom teachers are going to see at least a 2% raise. And then none of our non-classroom teachers are looking at anywhere close to a 2% raise. Some of them are looking at a pay cut. And then overall, 94% of the people on our proposal are going to see at least a 2% raise. That only leaves about 300 something teachers out, and they're getting at least 1.82. And on your side, and when we take into the whole instructional unit, 42% are receiving at least a 2% raise. And I think what we're doing here is that your proposal, it is raising the base $1,100 more at the expense of everybody else. And we have the decision to make here at our table. Again, not FEN, not FADS, not FEA, not the DOE. We get to make that decision. And if other districts, and let's not even talk about other districts, because we always want to compare other districts when we're trying to, I think, pass the buck off. But this is our table. We get to decide how we interpret this law, because there is no arbitrator opinion. There is no judge's ruling. There is no real opinion on this law formally at all. And so, again, I'm going to argue that we get to determine what maximum amount achievable looks like. And we cannot be a district that splits salary schedules to essentially, for a promoted position, they could make less than the colleagues that they're trying to help. And we get to decide that. And so I am urging you to be on the right side of this. And I think really at this point, I mean, I think the differences are insurmountable here.
Can I ask a question?
Sure, Brandon.
Underneath the yellow highlighted portion where it says, additionally, each school district is required to use the portion of the allocation as specified. That second bullet point, which the way I read this says, we're required to use a portion of this funding for other instructional personnel defined in the statute, B through D. I didn't see that in your proposal from last week.
I think what he's saying is essentially you completely forgot about over half of our instructional unit. Again, it's the sacrifice of getting the base to 45. You're doing that at the expense of everybody else. When I have read this law backwards and forwards, I've read all the accompanying documents. Essentially what you're doing is a banded method too. You're just compressing levels and banding it back. And so we have a more equitable approach that gets 94% of our instructional staff at least a 2% raise, most of them much higher than 2%. And I don't see where if you're not willing to come to our side on this side, we're definitely not coming to your side. We will not be splitting classroom and non-classroom teachers apart. We will not agree to it over my dead body. And I know that sounds like hyperbole, but it is what it is at this point.
So if I can,
Go
Brandon, I think this is referring to both the 80 and the 20%. So we had other full-time personnel receiving funds from this allocation. So not from the 80 the way you are requesting, but I just want to reiterate again, I won't get too much into it what Tedra said, but when you keep saying your proposal, what and the district's proposal, when we first got this and this first came down, and I'm going to be honest with you, that we didn't even think we were negotiating the 80%. That wasn't like, oh, against the teachers. It was just, this is how it's prescribed. Now just go sit down and negotiate the 20, because we really thought and still think there is no other way. And so I understand your point and over your dead body. I get that, and I appreciate it. But if there are districts, and I know you said not to look at other districts, well, I think this is a great time to look at other districts. And if they have signed and it goes to the state and it is approved, we're moving on. We're moving on.
The state does not have an
You
approval.
keep saying that, Stephanie, and I want to say this from the outside. I think from the outside looking in, it's good to say these sound bites. The state doesn't have an approval, but they do.
They
And
don't.
So let me tell you, Tissa,
No,
let me tell you why.
it's different. This
I'm
is
sure there's-
bargainable money. They do not have an approval process that's in the law. The DOE wanted an approval process,
Look at
and
the-
FEA's lobbyists got that taken out. The DOE is not have a seat at our bargaining table. It just says it has to be ratified by the school board. It is time for our district, along with other districts, to grow a backbone
Mhm.
and say, put the
You
middle
can
finger
say
up
we
to
don't
the
have a
DOE.
backbone, that's okay. My point is,
They don't have an approval process.
they do have an
No, they
approval
don't.
process. Just like
Where?
when we
Show it
did
to me.
this, just like when we did TISA
It's
funds.
not the same.
Okay, to Stephanie. Thank
It's
you.
not the same.
My point is, hold on for 1 second. My point is, just like they did not, and they don't prescribe an approval process for the TISA funds that we have. Remember that whole debacle that we had where you and I personally had to travel to all these schools? It's the same thing. They don't necessarily have an approval process. They will come back and say yay or nay.
They don't
And
get that opportunity here, Tedra.
I appreciate you saying that. My position is that they do. And so
Then they
and
need to
that-
show
that's
it because that's
where we are.
illegal. That's against chapter 447.
Good for you. And that's my point is that just like they did it then, they can do that with this. And so
You are giving them too much power. They do not have that power.
I appreciate that from your perspective. My perspective is different, and we'll agree to disagree. I'm not going to go round and round with you about it. It's just an agree to disagree. That's our perspective. It's just like they did it with that, and we had to change that, and we were in such a pickle. Thank God we had some extra funds at that point where we could rely and could at least adhere to the teacher bonus money or as much of it as we could. But they still have some sort of strings in this. And so that's it. That's all I'm saying. Did you have a question or not?
Yeah. Comment. I mean, it's an easy discussion to wrap up quickly, right? Because if there is an authority out there, you can show us an authority that says they have the approval. There's an approval process because it's not in the statute.
It has a reporting mechanism.
This is written in plain English. There's nothing. Okay, fine. If there is an authority, but they have an approval part in this, and you show it to us, we'll better that. It's an easy one, right? And then we're done. The conversation is over. If there is no authority, it's because we're kind of giving some extra, we're not just go along with POV, then that will be rejected, right? So again, show us that there's an authority, an approval process. It's an easy one to wrap up, right? Show it to us, vet it, it's a done deal. But again, like Stephanie said, if you're just sort of giving them some
More power than they
power
have.
than they actually do have, then we are fundamentally rejecting that. Once a period, we are.
Well, and even in the
appreciate
DOE's own
that.
memo,
We appreciate that.
I mean, the reporting mechanism, the spreadsheet that they had suggested you use looks very similar to what we had proposed and what we had preliminary talked about in Union County, just the way they reported it. It has the same information. In the law, it says it's only a reporting mechanism so that they can let the governor and the legislature know how the money was spent. Richard Corcoran has no seat at our table. Jacob Oliva has no seat at our table. And so if there is an approval process that you're hearing about on the other end, we need to know about that because it's illegal. It goes against chapter 447. They need to get the hell out of our bargaining table.
Have you looked at, Mike, have you had a chance to look at that reporting mechanism that DOE put out? Because it's almost, I mean, it was almost there.
No,
So I think at this point, we are of, I think our differences are so different that I think that we are at an impasse. Because there is no way that we're coming over to your side. And so, and if your counter is still 0 for paras and secretaries, we definitely are not coming over to the 0 side of things. So I think at this point we are at an impasse.
Okay. All right. Do you want to put that in writing to us?
Yep, you will
So then-
get a formal letter tomorrow.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. So I believe we are wrapped up for today with PEA officially. Oh.
Well, we did actually have something that we
Oh,
wanted to
Okay, good.
chat with you about, although it doesn't necessarily deal with the salary proposal.
Go
We
ahead.
have looked at other districts and the terminal pay. And I think Mary Ann proposed this a while ago or something like it. It was a sick leave buyout program at the last bargaining, if I'm not mistaken. So we actually had an opportunity to look at that. We provided that to you all in a packet that you have now. And so
It's just the one.
Yes.
This is one.
backside.
So would this go
it's
through?
para,
It's all three.
it's
Oh,
one for para,
okay, I gotcha,
one for ESP, and one for teachers.
gotcha.
And essentially what we're proposing is during the second and third years, we've changed some language essentially, that essentially it stays at 35, but then during your during your second year, it stays at 35%. And this is your terminal pay. So what happens is this is your sick leave. And during your third through 6 years of service, then if you leave the district, it then goes up to 50% in terms of the payout. And that is from 40%. And then during your 7th through 10th year, it goes up to 75, and that's from 45%. And then from 11 years on, it goes up to 100%. One of the things that we were noticing is that we were really low in this area. So we looked at Pasco, we looked at Orange, we looked at Osceola, and we thought, you know what, this is something that is that we can easily address.
Okay.
Obviously, it wouldn't apply to those teachers that are in probation, that are in their first year of service, nor would it apply to any ESP and or para in their first year of service. And so we just thought that we would present that to you. We actually thought about presenting it last year, and things just got too awry. But that's where we are. So we wanted to at least present that and put that on the table for you, and then go from there. The other issue that we wanted to look at is...
So after reading this over from beforehand and my team's on the group text, we're good with this. We can go ahead and TA off on this now.
Okay. And then now Sharika is passing out the supplemental salary schedule. The only thing is, we have not yet, with the sick leave, terminal pay for sick leave, we do at least need to notify the board. We've not yet notified the board of it. So we can TA.
But you can take it to them that it's been TA.
Yeah, I just
But
wanted
then,
you to
hold on
know
for one
that.
second. Wait. Don't TAs go away during impasse?
No, if you've come to an agreement on language or anything like that, anything TA'd comes as an agreement. You only bring what is not agreed upon to the impasse.
Okay.
So anything tentatively agreed to is agreed to
Let
at the
me read
table.
that again. I was under the impression, weren't you? Were you under the same impression that
I was
TAs?
going to ask the president
I
because
thought
I'm
TAs
not
go away.
sure.
So let me just check and make sure. I appreciate your
They do
response,
not,
but let me
though.
just check and make sure. Okay, so the other thing then that we will propose. So many of our high schools specifically are, is that mine? Okay. Many of our high schools specifically are going through and having many more girl wrestlers. So yay, good job, girls. Nonetheless, right now they are wrestling with boys. There's no specific title of girls head coach.
Okay.
And so that is what the salary schedule amends. Essentially is just including boy and girl head coach positions or coaching positions for head coach, head wrestling, JV wrestling, and
Yep. It just adds the wrestling all the way through.
Yep.
All right. We're okay with that.
All right.
So that's awesome. Yay, girls.
Yep, exactly. I thought that was good as well. And then the last thing in there, do you see the board certified behavior analyst position?
Yes.
So this actually went to the board as approved. However, we realized that we had not yet presented it to you all. And so we apologize about that. It is a 11-month teacher position, but it's essentially a teacher that will be paid 11 months like we normally do. We are looking for more skills rather than a normal behavior, 10-month behavior analyst. So they'll be certified in this case. So you can look through that and just let us know what you like or don't like, and then go from there. The board has already approved it, but we need to, I think they did it at the last board meeting, not board meeting. When we took the
It was August.
plan, no, it was in August. It was actually in April when we took the staffing plan, I think. So
Gotcha. Okay.
I just wanted to make sure. And then the last thing is, one of the other things,
What was the, I'm sorry, maybe it's here, but what's the proposed salary for the position?
it's an 11-month. So they would just essentially get,
They would be on the teacher salary, but they would get the 11
they'll get
month.
an 11-month pay. So you'll get another month of pay during the during your 11 months, excuse me. And then the last thing is, one of the things right now, our network managers are really, really, really heavily relied upon in all of our schools. And so I think you and I, or maybe your group and my group, your team and my team, really need to come to some sort of salary proposal, I think, or salary schedule for them. Right now, they're all over the place because you have para network managers and you have teacher network managers. Your teacher network managers are making a boatload, not in a, I'm not slighting them at all, when compared to a para network manager.
Just because they have a teaching certificate.
Right, yeah, and a degree. And so.
Well, and even para network managers can have degrees, but if they don't have a teaching certificate,
Yeah,
you
so
can't
we
put
just
them on
really
the
need to
team.
look at that just to make it a bit more equitable.
And I know we had talked about that last year.
What'd you say?
The rub was that they were saying
Right.
they had to reapply for their
A para
position.
position, right.
Because I know we had discussed network managers
I
last
just want to put
year.
it back on the table, maybe, and it's not anything big, but just something maybe conceptually that even we can get to, especially if this stays around, if, God forbid, we have to go to virtual again. And so we just need to make sure that I believe that we are, being fair with them as well, because they really have a heavy lift, particularly our para network managers that are only making like the 20 or 22. And then we have the teacher network managers that are making 45 and 47. So it's a big disparity there. So if you could just think
We're open
about
to
it.
that conversation, absolutely.
Okay, if you could just think about it, we can go from there. So
Okay.
those are the only things.
And then you've got the behavior technician para
Oh, I'm
that goes with the.
Who has her hand? Oh, Marianne has her hand up apparently. I can't see that on my screen.
Hold on, no.
We think that's from.
We
a
think it's from before.
previous-
Oh, okay.
It just went down.
All right.
Okay.
So
She was waving. She was saying hi.
So the behavior technician para is the next one, and so you're adding them to the pay grade.
Yes.
Okay. All right. We'll look at these and then get back with you with any notes on those job descriptions.
Okay.
Can I ask let me make sure. Can I ask you mentioned 2 districts, and I'm just curious, so I could follow them. I know we may agree to disagree on the submittal or approval of the plans, but who are
Reporting.
they?
Let's call it reporting because that's what the law says.
Reporting, and then I'd like to be able to follow those through. It was DeSoto and who?
DeSoto ratified, or not ratified, sorry, they'll be ratifying later. They have a tentative agreement as of last night. And then I know Swanee did maybe 2 weeks ago have a tentative agreement, but I'm not sure where they're at in the ratification process. So I'll have to look at the date, but I know Swanee has at least a TA.
Did DeSoto get to 47.5 as base?
No.
And
But they
did
did a
Swanee?
banding.
Neither of them got the 47.
Neither.
No.
Okay.
Anybody up in that, going up into the Panhandle, North Florida, they're not getting close. And DeSoto's not close either. But I can talk to Jerry and see what their actual proposal was, but I know they came to an agreement last night. So,
All right, so do you have anything else, sir?
nope, so we'll TA these 2, the wrestling, we're good with that, and then the terminal pay, we can TA those. But I think we are at an impasse for salaries.
Okay, that's fine. So thank you. We will conclude the negotiations. This is September 23rd, 2020 at 5:18 p.m. Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Everyone hang up.